Welcome everyone to another exciting edition of the Magic Sandwich Show, number apparently 119, although I wouldn't pay any credence to that. I always get the numbers wrong. But welcome and thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us on Vaughan TV or whether you're joining us on YouTube Live. It's a huge pleasure to welcome one of our stalwarts, Hogtie Champ, but also for, I think, the first time, Rumpus. And for the sake of the audience, before I go any further, I've always got to check this, Rumpus. I do apologise because I am technically inadequate. Can we be heard on Vaughan? And if anyone is watching on YouTube Live, have you got YouTube Live open, Hogtie? Can we be heard? Yes, everything's good.
Good audio on both services.
Absolutely fantastic. Wow. I apologise for being a few minutes late. It's because we were let down by somebody and brought in as a last minute replacement Rumpus. So it took us a few minutes to get that sorted out. So our apologies for that. And Rumpus, it is the first time on the show. It's, I think, the first time that we've ever spoken. Perhaps you would like to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about your activities on the internet and your basic sort of like position insofar as some of the topics that we're going to be concerned in, namely religion and atheism.
Right. Well, my educational background is in sort of physics and then electronics, and then I moved into sort of computing and been sort of project manager in computing and things. And I've been taking a great interest in. I've always been a follower for Richard Dawkins for decades, and I've read up quite a lot of biology and evolution and things. So I'm very interested in evolution, and I became a sort of atheist when I think when I was confirmed at the age of whatever it is, 12 or 13. I thought I was being given all this, what I regarded as bollocks at the time. And I thought, I don't believe this, but I just went along with it until I was about 16. And eventually my mother stopped getting me to go to church. And gradually I've become more and more militant in my atheism as time's gone, and particularly as I've seen people like Christopher Hitchens in action have just convinced me you can have the attitude that I wanted to have without sort of being struck down. So I'm pretty militant. I'm sort of in this sort of thunderfooty sort of side of things rather more than you possibly. And I'm all for striking down. I mean, faith schools really annoy me, for instance, and I dislike all militant religions. And I can't remember what the other questions you were. And on the internet, yes, I've got a channel. I've been around. I think I've been on YouTube for 5 or 6 years or something. But I'm just in the process of starting to do lots of videos on maths and physics and things. And I've been holding a few hangouts on R.C. Sproul, which I don't know if it's someone called Trey Jadlow who wanders around on the internet, supposedly proposing R.C. Sproul's proof of the existence of a self-existent being, and I've been analysing that along with a few other people you may have encountered, and I'm going to do a lot more of those sorts of hangouts on focusing on things and on sort of scientific videos. So I'm interested. So my mixture of science, physics, biology, and I'm a bit of a militant atheist, really, in the sort of semi-Thunderfoot mould.
Whether there's a huge difference between Thunderfoot and myself is something that I think we're going to touch upon, because some of the subjects that we do have lined up are, unfortunately, and we put this together fairly late, unfortunately, I think it's going to be necessary, although we're probably going to keep it in short form, where we're going to be discussing the US presidential campaign. I know everyone's going to be talking about that. I know Hogtie wants to go back to an issue that he raised on a previous show about flat earthism.
Oh, good! I love that.
I want to raise a third topic, which is whether religion can be a good thing, and if we have time. And I think this is probably where you're referring to the differences between myself and Thunderfoot. I think, I don't know, social justice warriors and that sort of thing. So those are the 4 topics that we have lined up for you. And if you would like to communicate with us, you can put comments either into the YouTube live feed. I won't see those ones, but I understand that Hogtie will. The trouble with that is that they tend to come out in chunks, at least 90 seconds after what is being spoken about. you're much better off if you want direct sort of like communication, so to speak, to post something in the Vaughan channel, which I'm keeping an eye on as best I can with these glasses. I think I've got to change my glasses to keep an eye on them. But you can also send us tweets to @TheDPRJones, or you can send something through on Skype to Magic Sandwich Show. But if you're going to do that, please restrict that, please, if you would, to if you want to come on the show and include in your contact request what exactly you want to talk about. If you just sent a contact request, it will, I'm sorry, it'll simply be ignored. So include what you want to talk about, and we may get you on live on the show. Okay.
Can I make a potential request for another subject? You talked a couple of weeks ago about uncaused events. I can't remember what the context was, and I was trying to get involved in that. And I was, I can't remember what it was something I was 4 weeks ago, and I was trying to get involved in that and explain to you what you might like to know about uncaused events at the sort of quantum level that I think might be interesting and relevant to that discussion 4 weeks ago. And I saw someone in the chat was asking about it as well.
Is this in relation to? I can only imagine. Was it in relation to the Kalam cosmological argument?
That was it. Yes, that was what you were having. Yeah.
Okay. Well, normally we kick off with a topical quiz about the most pressing news items of the day, but I'm prepared to leave that aside for the moment. We can always come back to that. Given that you want to talk about that, let's kick off with that.
Oh, right. Well,
remind us as best you can what the discussion was concerning.
It was the Kalam cosmological argument, which I think it was 4 weeks ago. You were discussing it as a William Lane Craig's argument, which goes, of course, as we all know, everything that begins to exist must have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe must have a cause.
Yes.
The conclusion being that was it, and I was just
let's not forget. Because I'm sure I made this point at the time, and I make it every time that we discuss William Lane Craig's use of the Kalam argument, is that he then goes from that cause through a series of 5, 6, maybe even 7 arguments as to why that cause is the particular God that he believes in. And I don't trouble myself too much when I hear the Kalam argument, even though I think could raise issues with premise 1, premise 2, and also the conclusion that follows. But it doesn't really matter to me, because I don't see that even if premise 1, premise 2, and the conclusion were true, it in any way gets you close to any God, let alone William Lane Craig's God. But
right, yeah,
over to you.
Okay, well, I would say that I've heard that argument before, but I think if someone like William Lane Craig can say that a all-powerful, omniscient, omnipotent God was necessary, then I think they're 90% of the way to proving the religion of their choice. So I think that's the biggest hurdle they've got to deal with. Okay, they've then got to deal with their particular God, but for me, that would just change things dramatically for me to believe that you could prove there is a divine entity out there that potentially could interact with us, but potentially be a personal God, let's say, as in a God that is somehow in the image of ourselves. Well, we're in the image of it. That would be a major step forward. At least, that would disturb me much more than which particular God it was. Actually, I mean, if it was the Christian God or the Islamic one, I would think, that's a secondary issue, it seems to me, over the existence of one at all. So
pause there, Rumpus, if I may. How are you defining God then? If you're simply defining God as a cause of the universe, then that doesn't get you anywhere close to any of the theistic gods, does it?
I would agree with you there, but the mere fact that there's something out there that, well, of course, they do suggest that there's got to have a mind or something behind it as well. because it's got.
But
I think there's a conscious act or some sort of act.
Yes, but my point, Rumpus, is this, that neither of the premises of Kalam refer to a conscious entity or even a physical entity.
Agreed. But I think, yes, I mean, my point is that actually that argument, yes, I would agree with you. But I think, nonetheless, if you could show that there's some necessary entity, I mean, you could fiddle with it a little, the argument a little bit, and then shows that there's a bit more to it. But I mean, you could argue they could just proving nothing more than deism. But do you think if you can prove deism, well, I suppose that actually is a conscious, that's supposedly a sort of thinking entity, I suppose, the deistic God. Yes, I mean, I still think that's at least, I regard it still as 80% of the work required to prove that a God is that you can prove that something had to have created the universe that did it intentionally. And then, of course, you get this idea of the Marcy Sproul thing about self-existent being, and this is the thing I've been discussing on videos. But anyway, if I just
I apologize for interrupting. I do have a tendency to do it too much, and I will let you speak. But just to refer to you to one of the comments that in the Vaughan chat is I'm sorry, it's Kebley. Who asks what uncaused things, and I think that's probably what you actually wanted to refer to. So please go ahead without interruption. And just before you do, for the person that says what no quiz, the quiz, there will be a few quizzes coming up tonight. Don't you worry about that. But I didn't expect this subject to come along, and I thought it was probably useful to talk about it from the get-go. So please, Rumpus, yes, causes.
Right, I wish you wouldn't say get go. What's wrong with the start? That's an horrible.
I'll tell you why. It's because the majority of our audience, I think, are from America, and it is an American expression, and a lot of American expressions and pronunciations I don't like, such as aluminum, really bugs me. But I think the expression from the get-go is actually one that I kind of like. So I'm sort of like leaning towards the American.
Right. Okay.
So I apologise if it offends you and rubs you up the wrong way. But from
words get and go together to mean start. Think when we got a perfectly good word start.
Would you like to start to explain the causation problem?
Yes. Okay. So at the quantum physics level, people may be aware of these quantum fluctuations and quantum indeterminacy. And so, for instance, in the if you consider an electron, for instance, sitting in an atom at a particular energy level, and it can get excited by either being heated up by just, if you, there's like in a bulb, the filament in a lamp, if you heat it up, it gets all hotter. And that means the electrons in the energy levels jump up and down, and they jump up when they're excited because the atoms bash one another. And those electrons in those energetic states will just spontaneously, without any cause, move to lower levels. And anybody who's familiar with physics knows about the Schrödinger wave equation, which produces all sorts of equations for the probability of things doing things. Similarly, with the double slit experiment, when you can have two electrons going through double slits and forming an interference pattern. You don't know where any particular electron is going to go, but you can say the probability of an electron will go on a particular stripe of the interference pattern you see on the other side. And similarly with radioactivity, you can be watching a uranium atom and it will spontaneously decay through no cause. There is no cause. There's just the Schrödinger wave equation says there's a probability of it doing something. So, for instance, if you have 10,000 uranium atoms, you know that the half-life that they are going to go. But it's a statistical thing. The Schrödinger wave equation says this is what the probability is. And so on any particular uranium atom, you're not going to know what it's going to do, because it could be 1 second or 10,000 years, or I can't remember what the half-life of uranium is. But it's statistical. So what the quantum physics does is to say it defines a sort of probability domain of what things can happen, the likelihood of a particular outcome. But the actual choice, just like throwing a dice, you've got 1 in 6 chances. and that's limited. So the quantum physics is saying, you've got 6 chances, but in fact it's going to weight some more than the others. But the actual roll itself, even now, we can't predict what a particular, even, I mean, chaos theory dictates, even if we had all the information about a die, rolling it, you would not be able to predict what it was, because you'd need to go down to sort of subatomic level, even lower. And then, of course, the quantum effects as well, and that'll add up. I mean, you can't roll dice. But so similarly, there's something similar with the probability domain provided by quantum physics, which means that things like electrons and radioactivity, when an atomic bomb goes off, for instance, this is an example I showed in a video, that is an uncaused event. The spontaneous decay of uranium atom is uncaused. There is nothing, by heating up uranium or subjecting it to radiation or doing anything you could possibly think about, except actually bashing the nucleus materially, will mean it behave in its own particular way. And it's got this sort of, Schrödinger says you can work out the maths of how a nucleus works, and it's going to behave in this way probabilistically, and that's uncaused. And so similarly, the basis of the universe could similarly be something like that, where there's a probabilistic chance of something happening and pop out of, and of course with virtual particles, which can exist if you do things like put 2 plates very close together. There's a thing called the Casimir effect, where you get the spontaneous generation of virtual particles, and Hawking radiation, where virtual particles appear next to, this is obviously not something we guarantee to be detected, but all the maths points to this, that if virtual particles spontaneously occur next to the boundary of a black hole's event horizon, you will actually get Hawking radiation. And you got a Nobel Prize for this, so we've got to believe it's true. And this is, again, another uncaused event. So the science is littered, and physics is littered with uncaused events. So this idea that the first premise that everything that begins to exist has to have a cause, well, no. There is a probabilistic nature to it, and we have the physics and the maths to dictate this. So as far as I'm concerned, that first premise is bollocks.
I had a conversation, and I'm not entirely sure it wasn't on one of our previous shows, where this very topic came up. And the person I was talking to, and I apologize for not remembering who it was, basically said you can't use the subatomic...
Quantum indeterminacy.
Thank you. When it comes to the creation of a universe. Once you've got a universe, you can say, right, yes, there are certain uncaused things that take place, but it doesn't follow that the creation... Okay.
Yeah, because they've got a philosophical concept of nothing. Because when physicists talk about nothing, they just mean, there's no matter or radiation or any sort of fields in a space. Whereas, of course, philosophically, nothing means no space, presumably no time either, and that's quite different from the nothing. But other people, like Ozzy, has actually pointed out that, well, all bets are off. Once you've got philosophical nothing, then you don't know what the rules are. If there's no time, there's nothing also to prevent anything arbitrary happening. We don't know what the rules are. So the point that whoever it was you're talking about probably was that the philosophical nothing is different from the.
One second, I think if my recollection was correct, is correct. He was actually a scientist himself.
Right. Yes, because he's probably, that's the point. He's probably framed that the physics nothing is different from the philosophical nothing. Is, I presume, the point he was making.
No, he was making the point that there was a difference between once a universe is created, that you have spontaneous events, cannot correlate to the fact that you can have a universe springing into existence in the same way. The laws, the laws that exist in the universe do not necessarily apply to the creation of the universe, I think, was the point he was making.
Right, that's the point I was making.
And I think Hogtie's desperate to jump in.
Yeah, I know that. I've heard that criticism, and that criticism is, hopefully I can explain this clearly, but that the criticism is actually support for the refutation of the Kalam, and I can explain how. So I've heard this criticism, and it's they'll say things like as Rumpus is saying, well, he objects to premise one of the Kalam, in that all things, whatever it is, anything that begins to exist has a cause. He's saying, well, no, we actually know of examples that don't have a cause. Even if we didn't have specific examples, like virtual particles or these quantum effects, radioactivity, radioactive decay. Yeah, even if we didn't have those examples, it doesn't matter, because it might be the case that there is one thing in the universe. I don't necessarily mean the physical universe. I mean our universe of discourse, all these problems we're talking about. There may be one thing that's an exception to that rule. It is merely inferential to say, well, gee, everything that I've bumped into in the world that began to exist has had a cause. Therefore, I'm going to conclude that everything that began to exist had a cause. That's merely an inferential argument. They seem to think that it's deductive, and of course it's not, because there may be something that that doesn't follow that rule, and of course they'll immediately turn around and posit, well, that there must be something that doesn't follow that rule, and they'll insert their God into that. So basically, anytime you're making observations, you're drawing an inference from those observations, interpolation makes a certain degree of sense, right? That when you see big things and small things, well, then the medium-sized things probably have the same attributes. If both the big things and the small things have the same attributes, medium-sized things probably have similar attributes too. Well, it's when you get to the extremes, the extremely large, the extremely small, the extremely late, the extremely early, right? When we're talking about what happened in the first, bazillionth, and that's bazillionth isn't the right term for it, but the first moments of the creation of the universe, those rules might not, and so the point is you can't extend our observations about the world to what happened at the creation of the universe, except by inference, and very hesitantly with a very large grain of salt. But anyway, so even if there weren't any examples, I would still not accept the first premise of the Kalam as being true. But that's not the point. The Rumpus and other people are saying, look, the first premise is simply wrong. It's demonstrably wrong. I can give you examples of things, events that happen, things that exist, that don't appear to have a cause. So here they are. Now the response to it is to say, well, wait a minute. Those things you're mentioning are functions of the physical world, right? The double slit experiment wouldn't be at all puzzling if there was no such thing as particles or no such thing as slits and there's no space or time, right? They're saying that those things are a function of the physical world. Radioactive decay, if you didn't have radioactive material and particles being emitted, right, as we didn't in the first moments of the creation of the universe, those things didn't exist. So you can't say that it's like these things, because the double slit experiment, the radioactive decay, all these things are functions of the material world as it exists. So the creation of the universe obviously isn't an example of that. That's my understanding of what the criticism is. But here's what's goofy about that, is that I don't think anybody is suggesting that, well, maybe the universe is a radioactive decay, or maybe the universe is, some quantum effect or something. That's not what the suggestion is. What the mentioning these examples, they're not saying that the creation of the universe is an example of that phenomenon. They're saying these phenomenon, observable phenomenon, exist as defeaters for the first premise of the Kalam. And as soon as they start saying, oh yeah, but you can't talk about things that happen in the physical world as related to the beginning of the universe, things like virtual particles and whatnot, because the creation of the universe, things might have been totally different. Okay, well then why do we have to accept the first premise of the Kalam then, if everything could have been different at the beginning of the universe? That was,
Can I pause you both there? One second.
Yeah, right.
Rumpus, because there's a question that appeared from Helena in the Vaughan chat that is addressed to Numpy. Now, I don't know who she's referring to as Numpy, but the question is, can Numpy discuss the inverted commas, maybe we just don't have access to the cause of the quantum events objections? Now, okay, you're accepting your Numpy. Okay, yes. I thought it could have been either of you, but okay.
No, that's Helena's just has a pet name for me, I think. She may have meant Rumpy. Is that N and R together? No. Yes. So there is an attack on my point of view, that it's an argument from ignorance, saying that okay, so we've got this probabilistic nature for things like radioactive decay. How do we know, for instance, there aren't invisible green pixies coming down and dissociating uranium atoms after a particular amount of time in exactly the same way as predicted by the Schrödinger wave equation? Now, you could argue that yes, it's a sort of radical philosophical attack, and obviously you can't, if you're prepared to go to that sort of level, you can't really defend, that there are magical pixies, invisible pixies that are prepared to go and model the Schrödinger wave equation predictions that we do have. But there are so many, if you're prepared to go down that route, almost nothing works. You can almost tackle everything and say what we know about things, Newton's laws, they're not really right either. In other words, we've got just as much evidence for Newton's laws working as we have for this phenomena. And it could be that Newton, if you're prepared to accept, because you could have green pixies doing all the work of Newton's forces equal to mass times acceleration. You could argue that's not true either. So if you're prepared to accept Newton's laws, then it seems to me you have to accept these laws, because we've tried to find correlations between radioactive decay and other effects, and we can't find them. So we've got the empirical evidence of how radioactive decay works, but we also have a theoretical basis as to why it should be behaving in the way it's behaving, and they match. So, just as we can't prove that we're not in a software simulation, if you're prepared to go the sort of solipsistic attack, which is almost what this is, then okay, all bets are off and you can't justify anything. But I'm prepared to say that if you're prepared to accept Newton's laws, then we can be sure about this probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics.
Can I just pause you there, because we have someone that wants to join us, and it will, excuse me, it will take me a moment just to rejig the screen capture, which I use to get the Skype call. But just going back briefly to whether you thought numpy was an affectionate term or a misspelling, I can assure you that the letters N and R are somewhat distant on the keyboard. I don't think that it was anything other than a deliberate attempt to insult you. But there we go. And if you I just pause 1 second, just so I explain to the audience what's going to happen. I've got to remove the screen capture of the Skype call as I get someone else in, and then it will be recaptured, so to speak. So you can carry on talking, absolutely no problem, and people will hear you. I've just got to rejig things. So
there is another theory. There is another theory brewing in the side chat, in the chat there on Vaughn, where DPR had made reference earlier in the show about the need to have your eyes checked and your glasses prescription possibly updated for your advancing age, because while the letters R and N are some distance apart on a QWERTY keyboard, the letters in this font RU look a lot like NU. So I'm reading what Helena wrote. It says, question, can Rumpy discuss maybe we just don't have access to the cause of quantum?
Yes, she says Rumpy. I'm reading it now. Yes, it's not Lumpy.
Yeah.
Oh, and I take it all back.
Yeah. Well, take heart, DPR. I think you've started a trend now, because for at least the next several days, there will be several comments directed to Numpy.
I've created a meme.
It's a, yeah.
I don't know how I'd like to get you all in line, but it looks as if I do this screen capture. Are you with us, board? Yeah, can you mute something?
Are you with us, board?
Can you hear me?
We can indeed. Can you mute something? And whilst I try and do a screen capture, so everyone can, at least if you're not going to appear on video, at least they will be able to see your avatar. And don't change it now, because otherwise I'll have to do a new one. There we go.
I need to step away for just a moment, but I will leave mine. People can enjoy the art while I'm...
Yeah.
I'll be very quick. Because I know if I... Yeah, you want to...
Absolutely. Board to bits, so you are with us. And when I said, can you mute yourself, I was talking about muting the background noise as opposed to your microphone.
He seems to have done both.
Yeah. And successfully, I have to say.
Right, okay. I have a
No, there we
problem.
go. There we go. And I apologise, that's the best screenshot I can get, because Skype as soon as I get a third person.
Can you hear me clear?
Yes, perfectly. Do carry on.
Well, the problem is I have a terrible lag because I'm not hearing you on Skype. I'm only hearing you on Vaughan. I'll carry on regardless and just state that my big issue with Kalam is the everything that begins to exist. And the question I put to the panel is, can you name me one single thing that has begun to exist? And in your answer, can you tell me the precise moment when that thing began to exist?
Well, I don't know. Okay, sorry, I was going to answer completely differently, you're the one with scientific knowledge education. I was going to say I think it's pretty much assumed that the universe began to exist. Now, I'm actually somewhat troubled by saying that, and I'm sure Numpty or Rumpus, or however he's going to be referred to in the future, may have a different view. I remember seeing an interesting documentary fairly recently in which people, a group of scientists, about maybe 25 or 30 scientists, were engaged in, the question of how the universe began to exist. And at one point during the documentary, there was footage of them being asked, do you believe that something existed before the universe existed? And about 50% of them raised their hands. So I think even amongst those who are specialists in this subject, I saw
that program actually at CPR. That was a Horizon program, wasn't it? Yes, and the 50% of them said that they weren't sure about what's happened. That there wasn't a start. Yes.
So if the experts are uncertain about this, then I think it would be unpardonably arrogant of me to suggest that I could advance the argument one way or another. But I think it's interesting to note that there is a discussion amongst the experts as to not whether there was a cause or what that cause was, but whether we can talk about the universe having a beginning and there being something before that beginning.
Bortowitz asked for an example of something coming into existence.
Let's forget the universe and talk about anything else.
Yeah,
well, no, let's talk about the universe first, Board.
No, let's talk about a photon. Let's talk about a photon, and that comes into existence when an electron changes level and is created as a result of that, and comes into existence.
Does it? And you've seen that. You've seen. So what I'm saying is that you're now talking about, point particles and something that we're never going to. Let's talk about something we can observe rather than point particles.
Are you suggesting we can't observe a photon?
Are you suggesting we can't observe a photon?
Kalam was not writing about photons or electrons.
Yeah, but you asked us you asked an example. He
made a posit.
You asked for an example of something coming to existence, and I provided one. So that wasn't your question.
Yeah, but I'm so all right. So sorry. So you can absolutely confirm that an electron is a particle.
Well, no, it's a manifestation of a Schrodinger wave. We weren't talking about. I was saying the change in state of an electron.
That's what I was saying. Talk about things we can discuss rather than things that in the quantum fuzzy world, things that Kalam was thinking about when he came up with his argument.
Well, your initial question wasn't that about what Kalam could observe.
I don't want to get bogged down in
to prove something that came into existence. You said an electron. Now you can't define one. So.
No, I said a photon. I said a photon came into existence as a result of a change in an electron state.
Okay, and a photon is what?
It's an electromagnetic wave. Look, I mean, perhaps you just want to go on to the what Kalam could observe, because I don't think we're getting very far here. And
I'm asking about things. They make this wonderful, things that are created have a creator, things that come into existence must have had a cause. And I'm saying that there is nothing out there, because everything is, if we go back to the atomic structure of things, atomic structures change. Things change into things. A chair doesn't, we can all say this is a chair and this isn't a chair. We can say this is a chicken and this is an egg. But we can say this is a child and this is an embryo, but actually finding any point and stating this is when something begins to exist.
yeah, I mean, the rearrangement
Oh,
of
I've got
matter.
terrible go here.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
very
most.
difficult. In fact, I think it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, most of the things that we see, we call coming into existence is just rearrangement of existing particles. And the patterns, I mean, we ourselves are just patterns of carbon and hydrogen and etc. in a particular pattern, and we exist as a result of our pattern having sort of self-maintaining properties. So yes, most of the time, things are just rearrangement of matter, electrons and other atoms, and at the deeper level, nucleons inside nuclei. So yes, most of the time, and the input of energy then causes that rearrangement. So yes, most of the time, things that we perceive as coming to existence are simply rearrangements of existing things.
Yeah, and so there's very, is there anything outside the quantum world where we see things popping into existence? Is there anything where we can say, this is a car now, before this it wasn't a car, it's on the production line? Well, there isn't. The whole thing, everything we experience in the universe, in our real lives, is a production line where things are gradually added, and then we suddenly, we know that's a car and we know that's a pile of bits, but at what stage in between on the production line does the car come into existence?
Yeah, it's just a naming convention, really. And obviously, macroscopic, cars look very different to our perceptions than the iron atoms that make it up, and the plastic bits of plastic that have been formed. So yes, I think most of the time, yes, it is things that come into existence are simply rearrangement of matter that already exists. But actually, at the quantum level, that isn't the case.
I agree.
Okay, we're in agreement. Thank you very much, Board. I'm going to remove you, and we're going to
Thank you very
try.
much, Board.
I get feedback from you as well. But Board, thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on.
No problem. If you could remove yourself, it probably will be easier than me removing you, because I can't see. How do I do this? End call with this person. I hope that's done it. No.
The audience.
Right, now I've got to rejig things. And I'll tell you what we'll do, because as I said before, why is it doing this to me? Why can't I get you back to how you were before? And then go into, I know what to do. There we go. Right. So that I remove. I'm sorry about this. This is one of the reasons that I don't like taking live calls, because it means I've got to rejig everything. There we go. So we're back to normal. Now, before we go any further, and given the fact that we've got a few other topics to talk about, and people were asking for the usual quiz, let's have that quiz now. And Rumpus, if you're not familiar with this, we like to touch upon the most topical and important issues of the day with
Cats.
not quite, but I'm gonna. I hope you have Vaughan open, because if you don't have Vaughan open,
I
you
do.
won't. You do? Okay, that's good. Because I'm going to include a screenshot and ask you why this story or this picture is in the news today, and hopefully everyone on Vaughan will be able to see that.
This is an easy one.
Well, it's kind of easy, but there's a few follow-up questions that I will have for you. So, why is this story in the news today, or what is the story behind this photograph?
God.
Oh, don't help him out, Hogtie.
Oh, okay,
You
good.
obviously
No.
know if Rumpus doesn't
Happy
know.
to hear him stymied. Yeah.
Yeah, Rumpus or Numpty. I hope that meme doesn't stick. I do apologise for that. Rumpus, why do you have any idea why this picture is?
She hasn't died, has she, or something?
Yeah, that's good enough.
All right.
When did she die?
Yesterday.
Oh, so close. Hogtie, when did she die?
Wasn't it just today?
It was today. And her name is?
Oh God. Nancy. Nancy
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so follow-up questions, and this is one for the audience. How old was she? Hogtie, seeing as you...
94.
Sorry?
94.
94. The audience says... one of the audience says very. Yes.
I'll go for 91.
Oh, wait, Rumpus, when Hogtie says, "Oh, I know the answer to this," it's 94. Your best bet is to go with 94. It was indeed 94. Now, the interesting thing is, things always seem to happen more recently than you think. So my follow-up question is, in what year did her husband, Ronald, who is obviously pictured there, die?
98 or something.
98. Okay. Hogtie, do you want to?
I do think it was more recent than that. I'm trying to think, where was I living? I want to say 2006.
Oh wow! And now I have got it here. I have to say, what's the audience saying? 2005, 2004. Any other answers before I give the?
Oh God! Didn't Margaret Thatcher go to his funeral or some memorial service or something a few years ago?
Oh, someone's put it in seconds, and I don't know how accurate you are. You might be absolutely spot on, but Hogtie, you're right. You're not right. You're the closest. It was in fact 2004. So James, you can give yourself half a point. You were very close.
Veneer in this.
How old was he when he died?
88.
This is 87 was my guess. I feel like I should know that.
We've got 91 from James. We've got is it Twilight? I'm sorry, I can't.
Mists.
95. Got 90. We've got 666, and we've got 85. He was actually much older than you'd think. He was. No one's got it right yet, but there's.
He wasn't 100, was he?
No one's got it right yet though.
97.
Still, no one's got it right. 93.
Oh, I was too far off with 89. Whenever it was I said 88.
Well, if you think you deserve yourself a point for that, That's
I was
fine.
within 3 years, I think, so that wasn't too bad.
Okay.
Oh, but
Next question. There will be a multiple choice coming up soon, but the next question, and again, I have to just remove that screenshot because it is a similar sort of thing.
As
As
you do that,
in,
I'm going to ask you,
what
do
is
people
what
remember-
is the story behind this? Go on, Hogtie.
I was going to say, people remember when Reagan was shot, which I think was 83, 81.
84, I think. 84, I thought.
84? Okay.
I think so. Randomly, I've got something like.
Yeah, that was a heck of a time. I mean, that was when live news coverage of events was a big deal, and
Oh,
yeah,
it had
I
a
guess
crash.
shot-
This had a crash. It had a crash with a. It had a crash with a truck.
I haven't even asked the question yet. What is the news story behind this photograph? Okay, Rumpus,
haven't
go
seen
on.
it.
Well, Rumpus is just Rumpus. You've obviously not a follower of this show, and you don't understand how the quiz works. We
Sorry.
at least give the audience an opportunity to answer the question
Yeah, that's what-
before
that's
you
true, I
jump
mentioned
in,
that.
or at least give me an opportunity to ask the question.
It was too funny, though. It was just too funny.
Right.
The punchline is just
Well,
too funny
well,
to exist.
no. Okay, you think you're clever because you know the story. Right? Does everyone? Have we got a moderator? Yeah, we have got a moderator.
he's-
Thank you.
He's got.
So yes, what is if you haven't been or you disbelieve what Rumpus has just said, what do you think the news story behind this photograph is? Hogtie.
Oh, I'm willing to abstain. He said he hit a. I just looked it up. He said he hit a truck. I'll say close enough. No, I hadn't heard anything about this story, so I'm willing to. I'll take no points for this.
All right. Well, in
The
that
honor
case,
system.
Might be the
yes,
bus,
that's
actually.
fine. Rumpus, I'm going to ask you some supplementary questions.
All right, okay.
Seeing
Why am
as
I
you
excluded?
you'll get your opportunity, Hogtie, and this is where you may win points. Okay. Seeing as you are so out of the gate, so to speak, Rumpus, and you said correctly that this is a Google self-drive car, one of the first to have an accident. Answer me this. What in which state in America did it happen?
The obvious choice is California, I suppose, but it probably isn't. Washington?
Okay, Hogtie, your opportunity to gain
No,
points.
now I have to abstain because I thought you were, and I've not done this in the show before, but I did actually look up the story. I don't know why I did that. It's actually more fun when you don't look it up. But there are a couple of instant trivia questions that emerge.
It's just between
That's what I was
it's
laughing at.
between the audience.
Yeah.
It's between the audience and you, Rumpus.
I've been red-carded.
And those in the audience, and there is a few seconds delay, so I'll allow a few more people to answer. We've got Iowa, we've got California, we've got somebody else has looked up the story. It was actually California, so I'm going to take a point off you, Rumpus, for that. Now-
They said California. That was my first answer.
Yes, but then you change your mind. You don't.
No.
Look, I'm the rule master. Pipe down. Right. Okay. So the second question is
How can I get a point to? You hadn't given me.
because
How can I get a point off? I've got the point right-
I make up the rules. That's why. No. Okay. You can still have your point, but the audience
Yeah.
has a point. So at the moment, audience 1, Rumpus 1, Hogtie at the moment. No, you got a point on the previous question, didn't you?
the
So
question, yeah.
yeah, you've all got points. So there's everything to play for. Okay.
I've got-
When
2 points.
on what date did it happen? Rumpus, again, I'm asking you first because you were
It
so
was-
belligerent in your answer. Go on.
It was about 5 days ago, 4 days ago. So
Okay.
it's now the 6th. So I'll go for the second.
Okay.
Things always happen more recently than you think.
When did it happen, Hogtie?
Valentine's Day.
You're not getting points because you looked at the story.
I-
Okay. Let's see if you can answer this. I'll give you a multiple choice on this one, but as Hogtie has looked up the answer, I'm going to come to him later. But Rumpus, was the cause of the accident computer error, human error, a lightning strike, or adverse weather conditions?
Well, the problem occurred because the computer assumed that a bus was going to leave it room and it didn't. So I don't know whether you'd argue that's the driver of the bus's error or the computer presumed something it shouldn't have. But presumably it has to do all sorts of presumptions about the behaviour of other vehicles. So I suppose that would make it I suppose it's a computer error because it presumed that, but otherwise you'd have to just say sitting. I mean, you have to make presumptions about other people's behaviour occasionally to get round things. Otherwise, you'd just be waiting in a queue. If you had lots of cars coming towards you, you have to sort of pull out a bit occasionally. So I'll go. There was someone sitting in the next seat, I think, who could have grabbed it and didn't quite grab it quickly enough. So, computer error.
Hogtie?
Act of God.
The audience takes the points on this one. It was actually human error, and I think I can scroll down. I can't. You're quite right, Hogtie. It was on Valentine's Day. It was very low speed, and I don't know whether you can see this. It says the human in the Google vehicle reported that he assumed the bus would slow down to let the car out, and so he did not override the car's self-driving computer. Now that, to me,
I don't know.
makes it human error.
No. Well, because what's the, well, okay.
No, because the human didn't stop the computer
Rumpus,
error.
you're such. We're going to have you back on the show. You're so belligerent.
Shouldn't the goal be? The goal you should be able to sleep in these things.
Yeah, because
right?
the point is you can't have someone driving it there and therefore say it's his problem that the guy who is sitting next to it monitoring it. It's not. It's the whole point of this thing. The car's supposed to be doing the driving.
Yeah, you should be able to hit your clicker, and then your car should be able to come and pick you up at work, and then take you home.
Sleep.
And you're drunk because you've been drinking at work all day, right? That's the whole point of these cars.
I kind of think it's a combination of both. So whoever said,
how can it be the human error who's sitting in his fault if it's a driverless car?
Rumpus, I'm going to give you a point. I'm going to give you a
something.
point, Rumpus.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to give the audience, anyone in the audience that said that it was human error.
No, I will give them. Driver and the computer, not between the person sitting in it.
Right. I'd go with that.
Rumpus, I have to say, we've had many of these quizzes. I have never before had anyone so angry, aggressive, and belligerent about
I'm competitive.
the just. No shit. Oh dear. Okay. Well, in this case, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to something
What's the
that.
speed of the vehicle?
Oh, Rumpus, do you want to know what the speed of the vehicle
It was a slow speed. Yeah, it was a very slow collision.
Yeah,
Is it
but
three
now if I tell you
kilometers
what the
5 miles an
papers
hour?
reported or what the press reported, you probably say, how do the press know that? Were they there measuring it?
Well, yeah, they were. Well, they presumably the data of the car. The data, presumably the car recorded
Go on.
exactly what it was doing at any one moment. So
What speed was the car going? And I will give you a bonus point if you can tell me what speed the bus was going.
I think the bus was doing 15 or something. if I
You've just
remember.
looked it up.
No, I knew that one. It was there, is it? Oh yeah. I can just see it. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, it was 15. I think.
Oh
Carl's doing
no,
5.
I've got it up on the screen. Of course, you're not getting points.
I didn't know. I knew that one actually.
All right, I'm going to
Oh,
introduce
in
a
fact,
new quiz.
I was 2 miles out, so I in fact got the car speed wrong. But yeah, I got the bus one right.
Yeah, right. I'm going to introduce a new one. Let me just remove this one. My next quiz is what would the religious police do? Now, if you hang on, let me just add this. And don't worry, members of the audience. I hope you enjoy this sort of quiz. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But oh, hang on. Let me just rejig that just to make sure. Yeah, that makes it much easier. So that we remove and we add screen capture. And just to give you a background to this, this is what do the religious police do? And people watching on Vaughan, I honestly I have no idea what you see on YouTube Live, but hopefully people on Vaughan can see this. So can you both of you see this? Can the audience see this? I will read it out just in case you can't. So this is the religious police in Saudi Arabia.
Can you make it a bit bigger?
If I make it bigger, yeah, I can. Hang on a second. I say I can. Oh, for some reason it's not letting me do this.
One of the options. They police join the party.
Hang on a second. Why is it doing this? Oh,
Okay, I can see it.
know.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
You
I
said
filled my
full
screen
screen.
now and I can see it. Yeah, I full
You just
screen
gotta
now. I
hit
can see it now.
Vaughn
Yeah.
does have a full screen option.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, we can make it. There. Is that better for
Yeah,
everyone?
that's wonderful. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So this is the religious police in Saudi Arabia. So we've got 6 questions here, so it's easy to score. And members of the audience, I know you love these quizzes. If you cheat, you're only cheating yourself, which, as I've said before, is absolute bollocks. No, it means you win if you cheat properly. Right, so the question is, the religious police in Saudi Arabia arrive at a government-sponsored cultural festival in Riyadh and attended by both men and women. Can you guess what happens? 1. The religious police try to separate the men from the women. A member of the religious police tries to break up the festival. A member of the religious police tells the women to go home. The police, join the party. None of your scientific education is going to help you here, Rumpus.
I
Well,
think I'm
I'm
going to
go-
go
Go
for
on.
something outrageous like they tell the women to go home.
Okay. I'm gonna make a pithy effort to try and keep a score of this.
Starting now.
In fact, I'm not, because it's going to be too difficult. What do the audience think? They join the party. D, C. C would be
Yeah, the one I said.
the police tells the women to. So sorry, who's going for what?
I went
Hogtie-
for the religious police tells the women to one of them tells the religious police tells the women to go home.
Okay, and Hogtie?
I'm going D. A whole other way with it. I'm going D.
They join the party.
Sure.
He's
Wow.
committed himself. Don't let him get away. It can't change.
Okay, well, I don't think they joined the party. I can't remember, but neither of you are correct. A member of the religious police tried to break up the festival, but he was stopped by the National Guard and removed from the scene. Men and women are usually allowed to mix during an annual government-sponsored festival as long as they comply with the conservative dress code. There you go.
Jesus Christ.
So, no points. Anyone? Oh, Jumbo. Sorry, James. Said no. It wasn't C, was it?
It was B, yeah.
It was B. Whoever said B, give yourself a mark. Okay, so members of the religious police ask a salesperson in a shop not to serve a woman because she is deemed to be dressed inappropriately. Can you guess what happens? 1, or A, he serves her, the religious police can't stop him. B, he asks the religious police to leave the shop. C, he doesn't serve the woman. Or D, he asks the religious police to serve her instead.
I'll go for C again. He doesn't serve the woman.
He doesn't serve the woman. What is the audience going for? We've got a D from the audience. We've got a double D. We've got an A. We've got a third D.
I'm going to go for A.
A.
If it's newsworthy, it's the man bites dog story here.
We'll just go, because there's a few seconds lag. Somebody says that he hopes it's A. I'm sorry, I hope it's a he. If it's not, I apologise. If it's a she. The majority are going for D in the audience. But you're going for...
I'm going for C. He doesn't serve the woman.
And Hogtie, you were going for A?
Yeah, I'm going for A.
Okay,
I'm
let's
just
have a
going a
look.
whole other way with it.
Oh! A is wrong. The legal boundaries in this case are blurred, but shopkeepers usually do comply as a religious police in a state institution, which reports to the authority. Police. So, hang on. Which was the right answer then?
Yeah, if you click on it, does it?
No.
Yeah. Oh, you're doing. Oh God, yeah. You're not going to find out until. Yeah, you've gone to one of these quiz things that doesn't tell you until the end.
Hang on. No, we can go back. Oh no.
Fundamental flaw, I think, in this procedure.
Right, we've done that one. Let's just go back there. Next. Normally it tells you.
So that's wrong as well. Yes, it's going to be C, isn't it? As I said.
Correct. It's C. There we go. He doesn't serve the woman.
Yeah.
Okay. So, next question. Can we see this one okay? Yeah. A member of the religious police asks a woman to leave a shopping centre because she's wearing nail polish. Can you guess what happens next? A. She agrees to leave the centre after they threaten to arrest her. The religious police arrest her. The woman confronts the police and refuses to leave the centre. The woman offers to remove the nail polish. Now, actually, I did do this before. I didn't remember the previous answer. I do know the answer to this one.
I'm going for the arrest her.
Arrest B.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got A's and D's coming from the audience. Hogtie?
Yeah, I'm going with A.
Okay, I think, if I remember rightly, we'll just let the audience have a few more. We've got A, B. Well, I think that C is actually the right answer. The religious police, and this is obviously, as I keep on saying, the religious police don't have blanket arrest powers. Usually they are accompanied by ordinary police when they make arrests, and their authority has been further reduced since 2013, when they were stripped of their ability to interrogate or charge people. So she actually confronted him. Good on her.
Yeah,
well done.
That's dangerous, yeah.
But I don't know what would have happened if the normal police would have been there. Anyway, the religious police arrive at the wedding party of an Egyptian couple celebrating it in the street. Can you guess what happens next? A. The party rush to their cars and are chased by the religious police. B. The religious police ask the people to go back to their cars. C. The religious people leave the men alone but order the women to go back to their cars. Or D. The police ask to join the party.
I'll go for C. The religious police leave the men alone but order the women to go back in their cars.
And that, I have to say, is what the majority of the audience at the moment is suggesting. Hogtie, are you going to go otherwise?
I want to go with just something different here. Like,
You've got rushing back to...
I'll do A.
You're going to go A?
Actually, sorry, this is Egypt, isn't it? Actually, it might...
No, it's a marriage in Saudi Arabia of an Egyptian couple.
It's a Saudi Arabian, yeah. I think I just haven't got a good read on what goes on in Saudi Arabia.
Well,
but I'm going with A.
This is why this program is so educational. So what are we going for, Hogtie?
I'm going for
A. I'll stick with A.
And
what are we going? Everybody else said C. You may as well select
Rumpus?
C because I'm going to be
Should
wrong
we have a look
again.
at Rumpus?
C. I'm going for C.
I have a feeling that C is correct. No! They ask everyone to go back to their cars.
Oh, God.
The religious police...
Jeez.
Religious police. I'm sorry, this is just so ridiculous. The religious police believe that music, as well as the mixing of men and... as well as the mixing of men and women, is unlawful.
See, this is what happens when religion is combined, conflated with actually having money. They've got a pool of money pouring out of the ground at them. They can behave in the most appalling way. They can indulge in their most appalling fantasies.
That's a topic we're coming on to. Don't worry. Let's just keep scores of things. I presume you've been keeping scores of yourself. I haven't.
I'm on 8.
But you're on 8. Okay.
This is my worst showing ever. My worst showing ever.
The audience is doing very well. A Kuwaiti actor arrives at a shopping centre in Riyadh, and a large group of female fans gather around him. Can you guess what happens next? A. The religious police grab him and take him to the centre control room for interrogation. They run to take selfies with him. The religious police ask him for his autograph, or the police beat him up. Now, do note there is a difference between C and D. C is the religious police, and D is the police. Rumpus.
I'll go for. Oh, it's A or D. Which one?
Well, see, the audience, if it helps you, actually, if it helps you, the audience began with AD, but have now, and this may be because they've been looking up on the internet, I don't know, the majority now are going for B.
Right, no,
but don't let that influence your decision.
I'm going to go for A.
Okay, and Hope Time.
I already picked A, and it's never A.
It's never A.
I'm going to stick with A.
But
that was the
let's
first
have
one
a look.
I picked in my head, so I'll stick with it.
Grab him and take him to. You're right. It's A.
Oh.
So who are these people who went and found
what's the reasoning behind saying it's never A, therefore I'm going for A?
Well, because it's the honor system. Are
you looking it up again?
A. No, I'm not. No.
Okay, let's move on before other people look this up. Okay. A man allegedly tries to blackmail a woman at gunpoint at a shopping centre. She phones the religious police for help. Can you guess what happens? 1. The religious police interrogate her and summon her guardian. They ignore the phone call. They close down the shopping centre. They call shopping centre security, prevent the man from running away and arrest him.
Has to be A.
Has to be A. And you're saying has to be A, and the audience are all going A, except for James, who's gone E. I have to say that James is actually closer than you are, because the answer is D. I think it's D. So he's closer than you are. So James, you by default you get a point there. Oh. So who? Anyone in the audience trying to try and claim victory? How many did you get in the audience? And I can shut this down for a while and go back to scene 1. There we go. So anyway, I've got more quizzes to come as well. Don't worry. But as I said at the beginning of the show, there are a couple of issues that just have to be discussed. And Hogtie, you said that every show on the internet at the moment is discussing the US presidential campaign, and that you really, really didn't want to touch upon it. Let's do it in 5 minutes, okay? I've got the clock running. I'll give you my views. It looks inevitable, despite the fact that the Republicans are trying to find some way of offloading Trump. Trump is going to win, despite the fact that Bernie has attracted a lot of interest. Clinton is going to win. If the polls are correct, if it's a Clinton-Trump election, Clinton will win. What more is there to say?
I find the whole thing just depressing. And just, it's not even the normal thing that people always say about elections. It's just like, you know, oh, vote for this guy or that guy. It doesn't really much matter. They're all, you know, people sort of have this contempt for politics anyway. That's not where, when I say this, that's not where it's coming from. It is actually looking at the individuals involved and just going like, whoa, seriously? But yeah, I mean, just in terms of predictions, yeah, the Trump thing is pretty serious. I think, yeah, he's going to win the nomination. And there'll be enough people out there that are just horrified at the concept of Trump that he can't possibly win the presidency. And in spite of people really being enticed and entranced by Bernie Sanders, it's going to be a Trump versus Clinton runoff, and Hillary Clinton's going to win. Maybe.
Rumpus, does the American politics interest you at all? Are you totally uninterested?
No, I'm very interested in politics in general, and the American politics does interest me in the sense I'm appalled by it, and I'm appalled by the structure of American politics as well. It seems to me they based it on they basically modelled it on the British, because we're often the obvious example of the first democracy, mother of parliaments, and things. They based it on that and simply replaced the king with a president. And so we had an independent judiciary, and we obviously got the parliament doing the legislature, and they just think, well, okay, the king will make that into president, and there you go, that's our model for how to build it. So it means that, unfortunately, you've got the president with all the executive power being frustrated by the legislature, whereas, of course, in this country, the prime minister actually sits in the legislature, and there's a sort of cooperation. In America, because Congress is not part of the government, it seems to me, they've got no reason for government to work. They're just in there to frustrate everything. So the only thing they've got in their interest is to their own personal interest. They're not part of the executive. There's nothing a congressman can do, it seems to me, to actually partake in the executive, and therefore they've no interest in the system working. And you've got people like is it Ted Cruz, who's the most hated senator of all time. There's not a single senator was prepared to support him. He's hated even more than Trump. So that means that because he's the only challenger to Trump, that presumably Trump will win. Although, of course, there is this possibility of the ex-mayor of New York getting involved. Oh God, what's it? Becoming a sort of independent candidate, because they've got the system in America that you can have if you get so many signatures on a petition or whatever it is, you can then enter the race. I think it could become so desperate that might happen. If only I could remember who's that? He was a famous rich billionaire, ex-mayor of New York. And then you've got Clinton, who seems to be an objectionable character, completely prepared to say anything or do anything, and the Blackwater Clinton stuff just seems very stupid. Christopher Hitchens wrote a book on how appalling the Clintons were. I haven't read it, but he seemed to pretty much rate whatever.
If you had to choose, though, and this is one for the audience as well.
Bernie.
Well, no, you're not allowed that choice, unfortunately, because given the predictions that are being made at the moment, you've got Hillary or you've got Donald. Which one would you prefer?
Hillary, I suppose, and at least she's got some substance. She actually knows a subject, whereas Trump actually seems to know nothing more than sloganizing, and he's just nothing more than a demagogue.
Yeah, no, I'd say Hillary as well.
There are actually people in the chat saying that they would rather shoot themselves.
It's a good option. I mean, isn't there some people are moving to Canada, aren't they? Isn't there some movement now that I think they've had a rise of applications to move to Canada. That's suddenly got suddenly tripled or quadrupled or something in the last few weeks or something.
Hey, it's me that asks the quiz questions. I don't know. I don't answer questions. Is that right? Is that right, Hogtie?
Well, it's right, but it's not necessarily as pointed as people think. After Super Tuesday, somebody from Google who keeps track of sort of the zeitgeist statistics reported that the searches from browsers in the United States, went up in the order of 350%, or it's just some ridiculous figure for how much they went up. Is how do I immigrate to Canada? And that's true. I mean, that's actually right from Google. So it's not just some crazy story around the internet. This actually did happen, but that's also to be taken into context. This actually happens every election cycle. where people start looking that up, and usually Super Tuesday is a pretty big day for it. The weird thing about it was what we saw on our side of it. Like most nations, we have our collection of government, the gc.ca, and Government of Canada website, and the immigration. How do I apply? To immigrate to Canada. They had to put up an announcement because they were having their servers were just swamped. Right, so there was enough demand for information about how to immigrate to Canada, at not just Google searches, but people knowing to go to this particular government website. That I checked it even just yesterday, and there's still a notice up there about the slow access speeds and alternate ways for people to contact and everything else.
Well, this is an interesting question for you then. If Trump gets elected and decides to build the wall that he has in relation to Mexico,
The answer is yes. We're a build one too.
how
Is that
long?
what you're asking?
No,
Too big.
no. How long would that wall have to be?
Oh, it's a quiz question. It's gonna be about 1,000 miles. 800 miles.
1,000?
miles.
What for the Mexico or the Canada?
Mexico, oh, for Canada one, it's probably two. For the Canada one, it'd be about 3,000.
Hogtie?
Which wall are you talking about now?
The Canada
Mexico?
wall, the imaginary Canada wall that I've just conjured up. Well, in fact,
Oh.
you conjured up.
Yeah. No, that's long. It's 45. It's got to be like almost 6,000 kilometers. So if we dial that to
4,500 miles, ish.
yeah.
Okay. Now, this is a question that I have no idea what the answer is, but I would certainly be very close to hog ties. I think it might actually be slightly longer because you've got to include the border between Alaska and
Oh,
Canada.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah,
So I would, if someone can look it up on the internet and let us know,
don't.
I would say it's probably about 6,000 miles.
That's not too much.
And is it going to be a double wall with electric cables and crocodiles in between it, or is it going to be?
Polar bears.
No, hang on. While you're looking that up,
Well, I'm
now
not
you
looking.
also wanna
I'm not
get-
looking it up. I'm trying to run so many different things at the
No,
moment. I can't
I want
run.
to entertain the idea that somebody would build a wall between Alaska and the Yukon. Just look at a photo of the place. Basically, we'd need like 100-foot stretch of walls where we happen to build a highway, or just tear up that put up a barrier on the highway. You can't just walk from Alaska to the Yukon. That's
Why not?
it's unpleasant ground, I will say.
Oh, tell us all about it, Hogtie. You know about this.
There's a Google Plus exchange about this a little while ago. Yeah, no, there's large sections of the Rockies that you don't just go walking around for fear of losing your feet. That's the kind of place we're talking about. We wouldn't
Is this
build
sort
a
of
wall.
place you'd go for
So,
karate?
so
session?
when you know, hang on a second. So when Sarah Palin said that she had better relationships with Russia because she could see Russia over the seas, she was in a way speaking correctly, because it's much easier to get from Alaska to Russia than it is from Alaska to Canada. Is
It's
that
actually
what
more
you're saying?
passable. Yeah, I mean, if you know how to go across the ocean, then yeah, it's a lot more passable. But to actually sort of walk from one place to another up there, it's
God bless Sarah Palin. And
It's-
hopefully,
I've got-
do you think she's going to be Trump's running mate? She certainly has been out there supporting him, which I have to say is one of the most wonderful moments of the caucuses and the nominations and whatever, when Sarah Palin got up to speak in support of Donald Trump.
She was talking gibberish. Even
Of
Donald Trump
course.
couldn't believe what he was saying. I've got here, by
was
the way,
awesome.
I've got the length of the US-Canada border here, not including Alaska. It's very nearly 4,000 miles, and the length of the US-Mexican border is 2,000 miles. And the length of the Alaska-Canada border alone is 1,500. So the total border, including Alaska, is 5,500 miles.
What did I say?
You said 6, and I poo-pooed it.
Well, that just shows what a brilliant brain I have and what a fuckwit you are.
So it is.
Okay, I've got one more trivia question for you before we move on to our next topic, which is going to be whether religion is good for the world or not, which I think is going to be an interesting topic. But allow me, please, to do this again. I've got to remove previous thing and add a new thing. And oh no, I've definitely got.
What's this?
I've definitely got another question for you before the show ends. I've got to add, hang on a second, add screen capture. And again, it's going to be one of these, why is this picture in the news? Okay. Can you I hope you can all see that on Vaughan and on YouTube. Hopefully the both of you can see that.
No,
Can you tell me what the relevance of...
can't see it.
It takes a couple seconds to come up on Vaughn. It's on Vaughn now.
Yeah? Can you
Oh,
you can see it
sorry.
on Vaughan? Yeah?
So I was thinking on Skype. Sorry.
Can,
Oh, this is the guy who's. This is an American who's come back for a year or something. He's been in space for a year.
okay, that was going to be my first question. Can you tell me, it's not exactly a year, can you tell me how many... It is an astronaut. His name is Scott Kelly, and he has spent a certain amount of days in space. It's not exactly a year. Is anyone able to tell me exactly how many days on the International Space Station that he spent?
I just knew it was near a year. I don't know anything more than that.
Well, you know, imagine the
360
game...
300
go on.
366.
366. 67. Okay, 367. What are people... Oh, there's a lot of confident people in the audience.
Oh, I just glanced at the chat. Yeah, 340. And I was thinking, I knew that it was days, like not even a full month short of a year. But yeah, I'd accept 340, sure.
340 is absolutely correct. Well done, whoever said that. But here's the supplementary question. Whilst on the International Space Station, did
I know the
he...
answer.
Oh, you do. Did
I
he
do. Go ahead.
shrink or did he grow?
Bro.
Yeah, he would get longer.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're all in agreement that he grew. By how much did he grow over his
Inch and a half.
340
I
days?
I would have guessed 2 inches. I now see people well-informed people in the side chat say 3 inches, but you could easily do 2 inches just off.
I
Okay,
need
perhaps
the
two.
answer. I'm terribly sorry. I need the answer
2.
in centimeters.
3.
50 millimeters, 5 centimeters.
We've got
6 centimeters.
we've got
6 centimeters. I'm going
Rumpus
to 6
saying
centimeters
3, and we've got Hogtie saying 5.
now. 6. I'm going to 6.
6.
I'm upping my answer from 2 inches to 6. To 6
I,
centimeters.
and people in the audience, I need
They're going
it
to
in centimeters, and no one, so far as I can see, has got it right yet,
4.
according to the reports that I have. You've just looked it up, Rumpus.
No, I haven't. No, honestly, I haven't. I did say 3 or 4 when I initially gave my answer. I said 3 or 4, and I was I was just thinking 4 was a bit nearer to the size in inches I was thinking of.
4 is correct.
All right, I think.
4 centimeters, and that's 4 inches.
That's not 4 inches.
Sorry, 4 centimeters is how many inches? It's not far off a couple, is it?
2.5
Yeah.
inches.
2,
4
yeah.
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 No, sorry. No, sorry.
No.
1.5 inches. I'm going to say. Yeah, 2 inches is 5 centimeters, pretty much. Ben.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
there we
put
go.
Rumpus's earlier imperial guess to be pretty good, actually.
So I don't know. You're only cheating yourself if you give yourself marks when you don't deserve them. So I'm not keeping tally. There is one story I want to come just very briefly, just for the lulls. Let me just remove that one and introduce again a new screen capture and ask you again, what is the story behind... Oh, hang on a second. I've got to cancel that.
I thought you were going to ask me.
No, cancel that. Remove.
What was, just while you're doing that, was Scott Kelly the guy that has the twin brother?
Yes, he does.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Let me just go back so we can all see each other. One of the things that I thought interesting about the account that he had of 340 days in space is that not only did he grow 4 centimeters, which apparently, once he got back to Earth, really sort of like he came back to his normal size very quickly. It was actually a year before he got back home, which is the difference between, because he obviously didn't splash back at his home. He splashed back in, I think, Russia, and then had to get flights and whatever after days of attention and medical treatment and whatever. What was the one thing that he complained of most of all, apart from growing and shrinking? What's the one thing that he complained about? Yes, I'll give you that. There are others.
Phantom skin pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Explain that hog tie for us.
Well, the spinal cord thing, I think, people know why he got taller, right?
Well, I'm not entirely sure I do know why he got taller.
Oh, okay. Well, this has been well known, even from the observation that people are taller when they first wake up in the morning. That when you lay flat, the discs in between.
Can you carry on talking and fill in 2 minutes gap for me on this, because I think it's so interesting. I'll still be listening.
Yeah. Well, I'll do the height thing first. The skin one's a little more difficult to explain, but the height thing. So the spinal column, the vertebrae, they're bones, right? And they would clunk into each other. So there's actually sort of sac-filled discs in between that sort of give a bit of shock absorption. And like anything else that's a shock absorber, they actually compress in their length when gravity's this way. When you lay on your back, they tend to sort of slowly stretch out. Well, now we find out you spend about a year in space, the whole length of it will grow. Most of the growth, I mean, again, they would do a whole bunch of measurements. I haven't read this, but I'm going to just make a guess, which I think most people in the audience would say, well, that's pretty obvious, I hope. Most of that extension of length would have been between the pelvis and the shoulders. It would have all been in the spinal column extending. And he stands up and walks around for 15 minutes, and he'd have lost at least an inch of that in the first bit of walking around. It actually compresses again fairly quickly. The skin one's a little harder to understand, but I guess maybe think of it like this: is when you're in a dark room, your eyes tend to become more sensitive to the light, and then you go out in the bright, and there's like, oh, now the light is too bright. But then your eyes, it's sort of like a thermostat setting on your eyes, almost a sensitivity setting. When you're out in bright light, your eyes tend to not be as sensitive to the light. And then you go into a dark room and all of a sudden now you're just completely blind. And you stay in the dark room for a while. Well, now you can see, but then you go back in the bright light. Well, now it hurts. And this is what they're thinking, is that the skin, absent the normal sort of stimulation that comes, and we're not talking about touching your skin because he has clothes touching his skin, but the longitudinal stretching of skin as your body's bearing weight, and it's sort of, they're saying that with less exposure to gravity, that the skin actually, I like the dark room analogy. The skin gets less of that stimulation, and therefore it sort of turns up its sensitivity dial, and you become more sensitive, just like your eyes become more sensitive to light. Well, then now when you come back into gravity, and then your tissues are sort of sloshing a bit more, and you get more of that. Again, this is not the here, I can do it this way. There's poke receptors on the skin, and then there's stretch receptors for the longitudinal stretching. It's the stretch receptors that he now feels like his skin is being stretched all different ways at all different times, because he's unaccustomed to that. He hasn't had it happen for 340 days. And apparently it's a more than a little annoying. They could use, there are drugs they can use to put a stop to it until his skin started to retune, but I don't think they're doing that because there's really not much, it won't be long before he stops complaining about it at the very least.
Yeah, one of the things they suffer from as well, which is really disturbing, is that because they have without the gravity, there's a lot more blood flowing around the brain and the upper part of the body, and it actually increases the pressure in the head, and that actually causes a deformation in the eyeballs, such that they actually can go up with sort of 20/20 vision, and they suffer when they come back down of a permanent damage to the shape of their eyeballs, and so they can't see so well.
I wonder because the clip that I saw when he was being interviewed, and he was talking about the skin condition and the sensitivity of the skin that you referred to. In amongst the report, they were referring to how this could potentially, make advances to sending a manned mission to Mars. What it suggested to me was much more skeptical, which was it shows just how implausible a mission to Mars would be, because the mission to Mars would take a lot longer than 340 days. And of course, whether it's a one-way ticket or not is a different matter. But there are so many hurdles to overcome. And being skeptical, naturally as I am, I'm just thinking, a mission to Mars is impossible. But then again, I always thought that being able to talk to people over the internet would be something that I would never in a million years see when I was growing up. So I don't know. Do you think that this is highlighting problems or advancing opportunities?
What
This sort of like experience of living the best part of a year in space, does it show that we have limitations, or does it?
Yeah, I think the gravity thing is just the lack of gravity is absolutely a desperate problem, and because the body, as I say, you just start the things like the eyes don't work properly, and they can't stop the loss of calcium. No matter what you do, it seems that, and then so the only way to have it is have some sort of artificial gravity on these things. But then, in fact, that's a huge problem. In fact, it's almost impossible to have artificial gravity because that's the only way you can do it with spinning. And if you have something spinning, apparently the spinning up process makes you feel sick doing that in space. And what's more, you couldn't operate in that because I don't know if you're familiar with the Coriolis force on the world, but if you something like the 2001 ship, although it seems this all looks wonderful, but in fact you couldn't have operate machinery and things in such a thing because the Coriolis force will cause things that move, because Coriolis force affects things that moves, will actually go off in weird directions, and a lot of the mechanical things wouldn't work. And as I say, the speeding up issue and getting in and out apparently causes. I think they had NASA did something about getting people to go into these things on the ground, and they were thinking of installing a spinny artificial gravity thing in one of the initial things, and they discovered that the problems of getting people to go in and out and the disturbance it causes to them is worse than the problem with the muscle wedges, so they didn't do it. So there's a huge problem. Of course, also going to Mars, there's the problem of cosmic rays, these high energy protons that shoot off from the sun, and astronauts report that when they go into space, they get these sort of starry effects in their vision, and it's because high energy protons actually penetrating them into their brain. And of course, that's what causes cancer, disrupting DNA. And of course, you can't make spaceships out of lead really if you want to protect yourself from them. So a trip to Mars, which will involve and of course the ISS is protected by the Earth's magnetic field from a lot of the rubbish that comes around. So going off into Mars, though it aggravates it in terms of the one of those space fields that are there, but the people don't believe we went to the moon, the fields that you go through. So all in all, I think it's real trouble. Yeah, I agree with you, DPR. I think it could be unless we have a new propulsion system, I think it's really tricky.
I have to say that that's my view, but as I've mentioned, not only in these shows but also on other hangouts, I recall when I was growing up, there was a program which I suspect you're far too young to have been alive at the time, let alone recall, which was called Tomorrow's World. You've got some distant recollection of it or whatever. Yeah. And I remember a particular version of episode of Tomorrow's World where I was being told that, and this was in the day of telephones, which were the size of a shoebox, landline only. And this program was suggesting that there would come a day where I would be able to actually see the person that I was talking to on the landline. And I remember thinking, this is absolutely nonsense. This will
Absolutely,
never,
like-
ever happen.
Yeah,
So
I can
I don't
imagine.
know, the way in which technology is progressing and improving and whatever, whilst I remain highly skeptical about the possibility of a trip to Mars, I think it would be very foolish of me to say that there won't come, or there will not come, a stage in our technology where it would be impossible.
Yeah, someone in the chat's just reminded me actually that something I knew actually. You can have magnetic shielding, of course, to deviate these cosmic rays, but they are very, very powerful, and I can't remember what the physics of them, whether you can divert them, because these protons and things that come out of space are actually from supernovas, and they're almost at the speed of light, so deflecting them is quite a job. So I can't remember whether you've got the potential of building a powerful little sort of local magnetic field generator that would deflect them coming at you, so you might be able to solve the radiation problem to some degree at least. But the gravity one is really tricky.
Okay, I'm going to leave further discussion on that to a later show. I've got one more quiz
I gotta
question.
throw in a perchlorate thing. Why would we go to Mars and deal with perchlorates that are going to give us all sorts of toxic related diseases and destroy all the equipment and stuff?
Are you suggesting for a moment that there is life on Mars?
No, what? What did I say?
Yeah, there's methane coming off it. They think.
Oh,
that, yeah,
methane. Sorry,
in fact,
I thought you were talking about. My bad. We've got one more question before there's one topic
Just
that
like
I
to say,
really want.
there's actually there is a British new satellite actually going off to Mars to detect. Sorry, have I been muted or something?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Just-
Sorry for the delay. Yeah, there's a new British. Remember Beagle 2, which is trying to land on Mars. There's a new one that's just been sponsored and is actually going up there specifically to look for life on Mars. And they think it's quite likely to be there because there's all these methane is usually produced by biological activity, and there's all these methane at certain times of the year. They're getting these methane streams come out of Mars, and so they think the chances of the life on there is actually,
What happened to the last thing we sent to Mars?
UK
Curiosity
or
rover? It's still cruising. Oh, UK.
yeah.
You know,
Curiosity
and
still
yeah,
cruising around.
we heard a lot about it at the time, and it was
Yeah,
drilling
Beagle.
and it was
Beagle 2.
examining. But I'm not.
It crashed and died, and they took a picture of it recently and said, "Oh yes, there, look, you can see the crash site."
So I may be mixing it up with something else. Anyway, let me go back to my next news story.
But to
Very
be clear, I know you're trying to do that, but to be clear, I wasn't saying anything about life on Mars. I'm saying that if human life were to ever go to Mars, the perchlorate that is just part of the Martian soil is deadly poison. We would be shipping anyone to go there to a rock of deadly poison. Why would we do that? Perchlorate, look it up. Look at SciShow. Hank Green there has a little 4-minute thing explaining how the perchlorates would destroy equipment and kill a bunch of people if they went. So if you haven't got time to listen to me talk about it, go listen to Hank Green.
will do.
Next issue.
Right, next issue. Why is this picture in the news? And
I know this because
well, hang on.
this
If you
guy
know,
with the
if you know it, if you
just
know
endorsed
it,
Donald Trump. But Donald Trump doesn't know who he is.
not entirely sure. This is recent news. Does anyone in the conversation happen to know what it is? Obviously, I will be telling you. Does anyone on the panel know why? This is recent
It's an
news,
anniversary. 100 years
and
or
I
something.
can tell you that this was something that was published in the New York Post on the 22nd of February of this year. So it is sort of like, and I'll give you another clue. It has something to do with his condition down below, so to speak.
Oh, that's another story. Single testicle. That's right. He had some penis. He had something wrong with his penis as well, didn't he? Oh, some. Oh, it's something it's not. Yeah, something to do with his genitalia in relation to his single. Not only had a problem with his testicle, but he had a problem with other bits as well.
I have to demand that you're more specific.
God.
Why?
Was it the size of his todger?
Okay, you're saying size of Todger. Hogtie, are you going to come up with anything
Well,
better? I've given you a very good clue. It's something to do with what's going on down below with Hitler.
Yeah. I don't know if I know what a todger is. I'm going to make a
A
guess.
Todger is a penis.
Okay. Yeah, make a guess.
In
Yeah, no,
UK
I heard-
UK speak. Well, in England speak. Yeah.
I had heard no discussion of Hitler's in particular. I do know that in the American presidential debates, the GOP nomination, that Todger's size has gotten to be an issue for discussion. So maybe there's some issue of Hitler's, if this is important for leadership. I don't know.
That's right. Donald was talking about his fingers and saying he didn't, just because he had small fingers, he didn't have a small todger or something.
And apparently also can hit a golf ball a long way, even though he's got small hands.
Oh,
But I have to I have to say
has given a pretty detailed description of the path of the urethra.
I have
not
to
seen this story at all, and I almost feel better off for it.
Well, you're quite right. I'm going to scroll up, I think, first. If this is scroll up, no, I can't. But I can scroll down, so it's just the way I've taken the screenshot. But the headline to this story is Hitler had a really tiny penis. So I kind of guess I've got to give marks to all of you. And there we go.
Well, I didn't know.
Well,
No, I never heard
he
this
didn't
before.
know, but he got the right answer. There is
Well, after I told him.
you can say something. You can say something that you do not believe to be true, but which is actually true. You can also say something that you believe to be false, but is in fact not false.
Yeah, but
So
you just
I
repeated what I
think
said.
no, Rumpus. I see that you are an incredibly confrontational and
Yeah, that's me, yeah.
competitive person,
That's
and I am going to, even though this is the last the quiz story that we have, I am going to give you the well, perhaps we'll see what happens
Todger points,
before
right.
the end. I'm going to give you the point for this, but whether you're the overall winner, we'll see at the end of the show. But yes, apparently he had a deformity, and this has only recently come to light. And there we go. I don't really want to touch upon this anymore, and Eva Brown probably couldn't touch upon it either. So, my final question to you, and this is one that we kind of touched upon. We're going to avoid flat Earth, because Rumpus, it's the first time on your show and on this show, and this is something that you wanted to discuss. And given that we've only got 15 to 20 minutes left, we're going to sort of like go through this fairly rapidly, and it is one of the topics that I touched upon at the beginning of the show. That is to say, is religion good or not? And this question is one that I wanted to ask because of recent discussions I've had in Hangouts on the internet, particularly Nadia's Hangouts. So I'm just going to throw this out for you, and Hogtie, please respond after Rumpus has given his answer. Question 1. Rumpus, are all religions bad?
Well, I think Anglicanism seems to be pretty docile and seems to have positive effects on society. And I'm probably against the run of play. I actually rather like the fact that we've got some harmless bishops and sitting in our upper parliament saying, introducing the moral questions. I certainly used to be more in favour of it, but now possibly a little bit less now. But I rather like the idea we've got some moral sort of, although admittedly I think we're only with Iran. I think we've got the only other religious elements actually in a judicial system. So something like Anglicanism seems to me to be a pretty positive thing. And of course, I think, as we may have discussed earlier, that there's some people like the Jason Burns of this world desperately need a religious. They need to feel that there's someone looking after them, someone they can believe, because they're confused by the world, they're confused by all the technology. They like to have something to grasp hold of, and of course, as you get older, and perhaps the people who are dying, whatever, or just getting older, they like the idea of having something to be positive about. And so, whereas if they don't, these same people might just get all dreadfully upset. And 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 something like the Anglican message, which obviously filters out all the revolting elements of Christian religion, tries to do all the caring for your neighbour, and then a lot of the charities, for instance, we have in this country are sort of semi-religiously, many of them that seem to do good anyway are. Whereas I think obviously in the American situation there seems to be a lot of revoltingness that comes out of it. But I'm basically with Christopher Hitchens that it does poison most of the way. But I think possibly in this country we've got a slightly different situation because we've got such a developed religion. It's almost ceased to be a religion, but more a sort of social service. Whereas possibly in rather less developed areas, it is more harmful.
Well, I think that's a fine answer, but I realise that I probably made a mistake in the initial question. So before I come to you, Hogtie, I want to ask a supplementary, if I may, Rumpus. What makes a religion good or bad, in your view?
Well, keeping the religious part of it out of it. I think the more sort of less doctrinal it is, and the more of a social service it is, it's the better. Because I mean, and then you notice this with atheists in general, they tend to be humanists. So I mean, you keep on in these hangouts. I mean, I hadn't realised it's quite the extent of the sort of evangelical attitude that existed until I've sort of seen hangouts in the last few years in America, and that they are devoted. When there's a conflict between human well-being and following God's law, they go with God's law, and they're prepared to believe that the flood or something was perfectly valid in killing children and genocide of who knows what. If it's instructed by the Bible, basically they follow the rule that if God says something is good, it's good. And so if there's a conflict between humanity and their religious doctrine, they go with the religious doctrine. Where something like Anglicanism, we seem to have abandoned almost all of the religious doctrine and just simply go for the human welfare. So I've forgotten your question now. What was the question again?
That's fine. My original question was, are all religions
so Anglican?
bad?
Yeah, I'll go with Anglicanism.
And what if the answer is yes? What is it about a religion that makes it bad? That was my supplementary.
Having a doctrine. Yes, so that was the point. I was trying. Yes, I was following the reasoning, following your original question.
You were doing it very well.
The more doctrinal it is, and therefore the less human welfare orientated it is, the worse it is. So the less doctrine it has, the better, I suppose. And it just goes on with what makes people good. I mean, I think Buddhism, for instance, tries to avoid, I suppose, having a strong doctrine. But even there, I think someone said, "Well, we've got."
I would totally disagree with you about Buddhism.
Exactly. This is it. I was saying there's a perception that Buddhism is harmless, but in fact, when you see some of the doctrines,
incredibly violent.
Yeah, and I think someone listed out the sayings of the Dalai Lama, things about what you should do with sperm and things, and they're actually the most reactionary, appalling bits of things that you could imagine that are coming out of the American evangelical side of things. And this sort of idea that Buddhism is fine is absolutely wrong.
It may have changed, but certainly in its history, Buddhism has been an extremely violent
but even
belief system.
Even the sayings of the Dalai Lama, as I say, will have been listed by somebody, and they are the most appalling things that he said. Even though he's regarded as a lovely, friendly chap because he's got a big smile.
Yes, and everyone thinks they're all monks and they're caring, and all they believe in is
Nirvana or something.
I've had a senior moment, reincarnation and whatever. Hogtie. Do you want to comment upon that? I've got a couple more questions to go, but
I want to address is there any such thing? What's a good making? Is there such thing as a good religion? What's a good making property of a religion? I got a point. I got to warm everyone up to this. I got to caution you. I got a point to make here, and I'm going to let you know up front. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And the whole time you guys have been talking, I've been trying to think of an effective analogy, and I fear I have not done so. But imagine you wanted to travel from one city to another, and you could get a ride with your uncle, but like he has a car that just like every other car, there's an ashtray. Oh, this is also in the 1970s. you're going to go from place to place in the 1970s, and your uncle's got his car, and there's an ashtray, and there's no seat belts, and he smokes the whole time that you're driving. Or you could take a bus, and buses at that time were divided into a smoking section and a non-smoking section. Well, of course, having a smoking section on a bus is like having a peeing section in a swimming pool. You could take airplanes, same thing in airplanes. They had smoking sections and non-smoking sections. So it doesn't matter how you're going to travel. The two things are going to happen. You're going to get from point A to point B, and you're going to be inundated with cigarette smoke. So somebody could say, well, are these things good? These planes and buses and cars, like, are these things good? Well, not really, because they cause cancer, right? Like, I find the whole question of, well, is religion a good thing? Is there such thing as a good religion or a bad religion? A bit of an ill-formed concept, because you can take a look at the factors, the defining factors, the necessary components, and then these other things that just tend to be sort of packaged in with these things, and you can look at them individually and say, I think travel's a lot safer now that we don't let people smoke on airplanes anymore. I think now it's become a little bit better. It's still planet destroying, whatever else is still a risk, etc. But my point is, I don't think there's such thing as a good religion, in the sense of, if you define the religion as being the core of supernatural dogmatic beliefs, that's just bullshit. It's just something that's made up. That's never helpful, right? You can point to things that have been a benefit, and you're going to hear me go along sort of the Christopher Hitchens line with this. There is simply no benefit of religion that cannot be attained and has not been attained through means that don't require the chewy bullshit center core of the whole religious package. Anything that somebody can point to that says, oh, isn't it nice that the Jainists don't like stepping on bugs? Okay, well, that's fine. But do you need the supernatural BS to do that? I don't think that one point, just to address one point that Rumpus had said, I don't think it's the case that the whole face of Christianity is just absolutely insane in the United States. It's radical evangelicalism that has really soared in popularity. Plus, being evangelical, their central belief is keep your mouth open, keep talking, right? They're all about being in your face with their faith. The majority of the Christians in the United States are not bad people. It's the ones who embrace the evangelical message that want their YouTube channels and come into your hangouts and disrupt hangouts and do that sort of thing. They're the squeaky wheel, right? I'm almost losing my point here. Oh yeah, I can tell you, when my country was founded on the charity and strong sense of community of the Christian faith. But so what? Right? I mean, the core story is still bullshit. I think there's no benefit that comes from entrancing a whole group of people to believe something that isn't true, so that you can then layer on top of that some message about how you got to stick in there and do good things by the community, share your combine with your fellow farmers.
Well, there is one thing, if nothing else, that I will take away from this show, and it is the expression that there should be a peeing section in a swimming pool. I have never heard that before, and I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Not my joke, but I'm joke, but it really paints a picture. Yeah.
It certainly does. I was in a conversation with someone who you're probably all familiar with, called Shamos, who I have to say does have the capacity to have very decent and very civil conversations. And it was during a conversation with him, which was very civil and very polite, he basically posed a question to me, the gist of which, and Shamos, if you are watching this and I misquote or the gist of your question, then I apologize. But he basically, his initial question was something along the lines of, is it better to know the truth or better to believe something that gives you hope or whatever? The gist of it being, and this is what transpired during the course of the conversation, why take away from someone a belief that gives them comfort and satisfaction? And ultimately, the best I could do was to identified that there was not a dichotomy in his initial question. And for some people, knowing the truth gives them comfort. And for other people, believing in whatever particular God or whatever gives them comfort. And should we take away or seek, not purposefully, but I kind of guess indirectly take away this belief that they have, just by virtue of explaining what we consider to be the truth?
Can I go first on this one?
Please do.
I do want to distinguish. I mean, obviously, my last answer was about the role of religious faith in structuring your society. Like, do you want to have a society where, collectively people are just taught this made up story, as opposed to learning the truth? You get things like, when it comes to social decisions and crafting a society, where there's a long-term commitment. So, for example, is it important for people today to understand that if it's the case that human beings are causing climate change, and it's a harmful climate change, is it important that people know that? It's not a comfortable truth. I kind of wish it weren't the case, but if it's the case, I think we should know about this because we're in it for the long haul. It's a very different question than how mistruths, and specifically religious or spiritual mistruths, affect a person. I would certainly concede that there are individuals out there who get a lot of comfort and might even be better people because of their already existing beliefs that are mistruths. Now, I don't think it's helpful. Like, I mean, if you identify somebody that's got if you found okay, what I'm trying to say is there are people out there who claim that they would be committing crimes or doing whatever else if they didn't believe in God. I don't know if I believe all those people who say that, but I'm sure that there are some that it is actually helpful. I wouldn't take somebody who's sort of a teenager that's having social problems and is like on getting arrested for minor things and sort of on the path to doing some pretty serious crimes, and to decide, well, what we need to do to fix this person is to instill in them some untrue supernatural BS beliefs to get them to not commit these crimes. I still think that there's no good reason to give somebody an untrue worldview with the justification that it'll make them a better person somehow down the road. But DPR, your second question is a totally different issue. It is, once you've got somebody who's lived a significant portion of their lives where they have all of their personality, their thoughts, their conceptualization about the world has been forged in the crucible of bullshit. Does it make sense to take it away from that person? Well, usually you can't take it away from them anyway. But it's, I think that, here's my one sentence answer. I think for all of those, with that context said, for all those people, religion has done them harm. Anybody who claims that the religious view has done them good, or other people who point to them and say, well, it's a good thing they had that religion, I would take the position that even still the religion has done them harm. But having said that, here we are. They've now lived their whole lives with this crutch. The whole concept of then kicking the crutch out from underneath them and taking away their crutch, I think would also do additional harm. So when I say that religion is helpful for some people in those circumstances, I'm not saying it's ever something a crutch you should want to give people and instill a dependence on it. But I recognize where the harm is done is in giving them this crutch, and then further harm is done when they lose that crutch. Does that help?
That's a very wonderful answer. And before I come back to Rumpus, can I just ask, we're now at the 2-hour mark, so I would be at this stage ready to end the show. I know that previously, Hogtied, that you've opened up a hangout following this show. Are you minded to do so? Because there's a couple of issues that I would love to see carried on, but I'm always reluctant to carry on this show over the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of doing so, but yeah, perhaps after a 10-minute break or something, we could do that for a short period.
Okay. In that case, there are a couple of issues that I would love to have you sort of like discuss. This is one of them, but also bringing the program to a close. After our previous show, or the one before, and I can't remember which one it is. It's the one in which we had a discussion about Matt Slick, and I know that Rumpus had a discussion with Matt Slick, and subsequent to that I was on a hangout where I was criticized by amongst other people, Matthew Bell, saying that, you know, we were outrageous in discussing a conversation that had taken place or whatever between Matt Slick and someone else, and we hadn't invited Matt Slick to the conversation. And my response was, the general basis of the conversation was not about the debate that this person had with Matt Slick, but it was about the philosophical arguments for the existence of God, and their complaints are as redundant and useless as suggesting that if we are talking about Socrates or Plato and their arguments, then, you know, what are we supposed to do? Get them on the show to discuss them? So that's one issue that I'd like to discuss in the after show on your hangout, and also I'd love to hear the Rumpus's response to what you've just said as well. But as I say, I really want to keep this to within 2 hours, and I think we've just gone over the mark. So there we go. Finally, can I just say one thing? We do actually have a Patreon account, and those that watch the show have watched the show know that all money that is donated through Patreon goes to MSF, Doctors Without Borders. We take nothing from it whatsoever, but it gives us some sort of incentive to carry on doing the show. I think, and I can't remember I know Coctopus is one of the donators, and I'm terribly sorry. I think we've only got one other, but we've got about $20 so far in the last 2 shows to donate. No, actually $40, I think, to donate to MSF, Doctors Without Borders. So please follow the links. I know they weren't included in the last YouTube video, but they will be in the next one. Apart from thanking Hogtie Champ and the Rumpus for appearing on the show, and thanking you all for watching, I'm going to bring it to a close unless Rumpus or Hogtie has anything to say. And it looks like Hogtie will actually have a Google Hangout after this show. Rumpus, thank you very much. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we finish off?
No, except that the Matt Slick encounter was quite amusing, and probably was a good reason. The style of his encounter probably justifies your lack of interest in him, and I think you're entirely justified not to invite someone on just simply because of the argument, because the argument stood by itself.
Well, it was one of the topics that I had listed for discussion, but we never got round to it. So perhaps that's one of the things that Hogtie can discuss with you on the hangout, which somehow he will, and I don't know how these things happen, but somehow he will.
It's already set up. We just got to find a place where to post the links. I'll post them.
Okay.
To my plus feed. I missed a moment there where I'd step away real quick, but
that's no problem.
Rumpus and Matt Slick. I want to ask. I had intended to ask Rumpus for his thoughts and his experience with Matt Slick, so maybe we'll open with that.
Yeah,
let me go over there.
Be good.
Some people asking about flat Earth. We'll see what it is. It's always sort of a fun meandering, which again we will try to limit it in time as well. But can we do about 10 minutes or so, folks? So check the feeds about 10 minutes from now.
Okay. Please don't hang up on me, Hogtie, because I don't know how to find leads or whatever, but I will be stopping the show now. Again, thank you, everyone. There may be, I would normally say we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. There may be an issue in 2 weeks' time. I'm not entirely sure, and I can't tell you why that would be. But hopefully, we will see you again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you to Hogtie. Thank you to the Rumpus. And